Today on Nerd and Normal, how technology is changing the way we access information for good and for bad.
And the ugly.
Welcome to Nerd and Normal with Matthew and Gareth, opening your mind to the world of technology. So let's get started.
Matthew, how are you today?
Not too bad, Gareth. It's a good day today so far. Let's keep it that way.
22nd of February now. On the 13th, which is a Friday, every year on the 13th of February, whatever day it happens to fall, it is known as World Radio Day. So I just thought I'd share that, given that both you and I have had the misfortune or fortune, depending upon whose role we're taking, of working in radio.
We have, as the old media still around, although maybe not so much these days.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a moment. But AI, it struck me during the week, and it was actually the theme for this year's World Radio Day. AI is and only ever should be a tool, not a voice, because voice is at the heart of radio, and AI can never be that, he says guardedly.
It's a worry. When I was being trained how to work in radio, we were taught to be entertaining, engaging, and informative. AI can't do those three things. Yes, it can be informative, but it can't be engaging or entertaining unless it's programmed with something to say. So I feel that the businesses that own radio stations these days are focused more on saving costs, and in doing so, are doing it to the detriment of the listeners, because you don't get the local information anymore.
Look, I think there may be 4 or 5 topics we should perhaps explore. Firstly, and all relating to technology and its use thereof, with or without AI. Misinformation, online misinformation. From my perspective, I think it, depending if you use Dr. Google as opposed to your real GP, it can pose a risk to a person's health, a person's safety, as well as society in more general terms. And some misinformation is deliberately spread, and that's even worse. Is there any way of protecting against it, or is there any way of finding a barrier to it?
So when it comes to rough, normal information, if you have multiple sources, you never rely on one thing. I remember when I was younger and you had to go off and do your school projects, you'd go to the library, you'd get multiple reference books, and you would go through them, make sure that the multiple reference books actually agreed on things. Behind me, that bookshelf is not a prop. That is filled with books, and it allows my children to get there and look at reference material from a range of different sources without leaving this room, without using the internet. That way they can verify that's all correct. Yes, have access to the internet so they can get there and actually check to see, does the reference book here agree with the content online? But the more information, more data points you have, and they agree on things, the better off you are. Are they always going to be truthful? No. But the more data points you use, the more chance there is of it actually being correct.
Yeah, and the other good thing about those books, props, whatever you want to call them behind you, the real books behind you, is that if you get your children to access them, you are also engaging them in the ability to research something rather than looking at a computer screen, typing in what you want researched, and it does it for you, because you'll get that bias from that particular computer screen. Whereas if you pick up a book A and then look at book B, 2 different historians, they'll have different perspectives, but you can research their various opinions and look at the background of their various opinions. And that's a great skill to have.
It is also comes down to news as well. You look at newspapers these days, really we only have 2 main providers of newspapers. We have News Corp in Australia and we have the 9 newspaper group. That's really it. And you have to wonder, are they both going to be honest? Then you have the online services, which is the ABC, Guardian, Daily Mail, a whole of other things as well, that they write their own stories, but also they pull the stories in from other locations. Is that all truthful as well? Or maybe some of that stuff also is incorrect.
But they each will have their own bias.
They will.
You mentioned the ABC would have its selective bias, and 9net would have its selective bias, and Murdoch, well, we know what that bias is.
Himself, usually.
Well, usually. Actually, that sort of raises the whole issue of the old school media as opposed to modern media, the digital platform we can look at now. I mean, newspapers, for argument's sake. I still love going into a news agency, which large companies have tried to disseminate and destroy, and buying a newspaper, feeling the paper, reading the paper. Lots of people now hey, this is what they're looking at. Their screen. You can get it online. It's still the paper, but it's not the same as getting print on your white pants.
It's not, but the benefit is usually it's the same content. Most newspapers these days, Sydney Morning Herald, Daily Telegraph, The Australian, actually put their print version onto their website and their iPhone and their iPad app, so you can actually get the full experience there digitally of the service. But for me, I haven't bought a newspaper in quite some time because they're getting more and more expensive. And they're getting more and more filled with ads as well. You get the whole wraparound these days from Harvey Norman. You get every 3 pages an ad from Harvey Norman. You get every other page has half the page filled with an ad for Harvey Norman. It's one of those things.
But if I look at a television network that is online, I can't get rid of those ads. At least with the newspaper, I can take the Harvey Norman page out and put it in the rubbish tin or the whatever and put it in the rubbish tin and read the news. You can't do that online. The ad comes on, you've got to sit through the ad. It may give you a choice. After 5 seconds, you can skip the ad. But guess what? It jumps to another ad.
Yeah, it's a case of advertisers have worked out that digital media gives them a chance to actually have you stuck. It's like playing a game on your tablet or your phone. Every 5 minutes, you get an ad, no matter what it happens. And the ads these days can be saying your phone's got a virus, your phone is full, and you can't skip it until you get then have the moment after about 5-10 seconds of saying, skip the ad. You think, oh, my phone's got a problem. I'll try and do things. It's where digital media has a disadvantage versus the old school media where you could just ignore the ads. Or if you're driving past something like a billboard, ignore the billboard.
A number of countries, well, 3 in particular, Great Britain, the United States of America, and Australia, call themselves a democratic society, a democratic country. Is there a risk to democracy with the evolution of digital?
Without a doubt. You look purely at the elections that happen every year all over the world, you get content from what they call content bots, usually from places that wish to change the democracies in those countries. I won't mention any certain countries, but we know they exist, and they create content and proliferate the content all over the internet through social media, through accounts that look like they're legitimate, as if they are going to be from either people who should have knowledge about certain things or are trustworthy names, and they say, oh, this politician said this politician has said that, and it just progressively gets worse every time there's a politician doing something, or their words get twisted in some other way.
How do you insulate yourself against that? Or you can't?
The only option you got these days is take yourself off social media. When Facebook actually realised that the other countries were doing this, they actually instigated a section inside Facebook that allowed you to say that the content that you were seeing was false. It was propaganda. You click on those things and you can say, no, the information here is false from either the ad you're seeing or the content you're seeing. That information now has been taken away. They've taken the ability for you to say that's false away from these things now. So the best idea is take yourself away from social media during those sort of situations, during the campaigns. That way you don't get that sort of garbage.
But we have 2 groups within, let's stay in Australia. We've got the baby boomers and the rest. And the baby boomers are still turning on old-fashioned AM radio and reading the Sydney Morning Herald as a spreadsheet, whereas the rest are all using social media. They're all using Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever. So, really? As the population ages?
It is going to get hard to sort of work out where the truth actually will be. It's one of the things that I'm beneficial, the fact that I'm sort of the age group where I can remember the days where newspapers were there, radio, TV. You'd sit down and watch the 6 o'clock news every night and get the latest news. And it was actually news. It wasn't all war and doom and gloom. There was actually content in there that was entertaining and it was actually informative and light-heartening. Those things are gone now. And so people don't want to watch that news anymore because it's all wars and people getting killed and those sort of things. That's why they levitate towards social media to get the sort of basic news they want to try and get. So for me, I like to check different sources online, ignoring social media. I don't get news from social media, Facebook, TikTok, none of that stuff at all. Mine is purely from websites I know that I can trust as an idea for a source. So
but how do you know you can trust them?
Because I use different sources all the time. So things like Daily Mail, ABC, Guardian, 9 News. I go to different websites and I myself say, okay, this is from one perspective, this is one bias, this is another bias. Are they similar enough? And does it give me both the things together, give me the whole bit of information. And it quite often works that way. Going from one source only, it's like researching for a project. You can't use one source for your information.
Yeah, can't use Chat GPT, right?
Well, you can. You can actually ask Chat, and this is one thing I've been practicing a fair bit with AI lately. You can ask the AI services, use this source and get me information on this news story. And it will go off and find information from that news source. You can ask it to find information from multiple news sources on that news story, and it will do exactly that for you and give you back the collated information saying where things are different between both sources. But the overall base information, you get that easily.
One of our states has got a state election coming up later this year. We've got a federal election ahead. We have council elections. And yet every time there's an election, the Electoral Commission never puts out information about beware the impacts of AI on these elections. Beware the impacts of AI on influencing you in a direction other than the one that you think you should go in. The bias may come out, whatever. Guarding yourself against it, how is that possible?
There really isn't an easy way. These days, even just scrolling through Facebook earlier on this morning, I saw content on Facebook that was obviously, to me, AI created, and it was attacking a politician. It's one of those things that it is really hard, unless you know what to look for, you're never going to pick if it's an AI or not. You're going to think, oh, this is actually the person saying this, because AI can generate people's voices, faces, whole locations. And that's where the information becomes difficult to actually say, is it truthful or not? You got to have an idea of what you're looking at to say, yeah, that person is saying that, or no, they're not. And there's no easy option.
Knowing that media, like everything, is evolving, how do you see it evolving in a way that we can become more reliant on the truth being ever present in it, as opposed to a bias influencing you in a wrong direction or a different direction?
Let's break it down to old school media and new school media. I see old school media, radio, TV, becoming less important with things because they're right now battling and losing the battle for advertising revenue from places like Google and Facebook. And that revenue is what they use to actually pay the staff. So without the payment for staff for hosting the programs or producing the journalism, they're not going to be able to have the staff at all because they're going to lose money to have journalists and show hosts. So they're going to drop those services. It's Channel 10's a fine example. Channel 10 looked at dropping most of the news coverage for the last few years because they couldn't afford to pay the news staff. They've since picked it up again. So old school media I see is unfortunately dying out. Even music radio. People these days listen to things like Spotify in their cars rather than trying to get the information from
or
the
Apple
radio.
Music or Amazon. Let's not just push one particular service. Yeah,
and you can use a service like Waze in your car to know what traffic is actually doing around where you're driving. So you don't need traffic reports anymore. So the old travel information given on radio stations every 15 minutes isn't so important. And then you have things like social media where you can have people post on local Facebook groups, which does away the need for local news coverage, which again destroys the local newsroom for radio stations. Then you have newspapers battling again still with online for trying to get the ad revenue. So they don't have the journalists they used to have. They're sort of sourcing their news from just wire services that are getting, again, less and less, which gives them less content, less advertising revenue from having less content. It's not
only revenue from advertising, it's also the online newspaper. I mean, if you want to access an online newspaper, you've got to pay to have that online news service. And you mentioned a little while ago that you've given up buying a newspaper because the cost is prohibitive. Well, the cost to access online is also to some extent prohibitive. I mean, I read The Australian. I'll wave the flag, however much it's biased. I know it's biased, but I get counter that bias with something else. But it cost me $4.50 a day to buy The Australian. And it's not cheaper to read The Australian online.
But if you're just going for the news content, it is, because all their stories are cheaper to do just with their basic website than they are trying to regenerate the actual print version on their app or their website. But then you look at new media, the online world of doing things, where they can either have, from social media, people putting the content on there themselves, and that's then free content, news content for them to use, or they collate the information from the old school media that still exists. In the case of, say, Facebook and other services like that, TikTok doesn't do it. It's mostly Facebook that do it, where they make the companies like Nine News and other places put their content on their website, and then that becomes content for Facebook to use. Is a fine example of that.
Yeah, but Facebook then charge the newspaper company to put it on their
Yeah.
platform anyway.
It's difficult because as much as people want to have the local channels, the local stations all still existing, local newspapers, unfortunately, without the support that they used to get, it's not going to happen anymore.
Here it is, February the 22nd, Sunday, 2026. B. Charles Darwin, how do you see media evolving in the next 5 years? Just in a brief way before we depart and read our respective newspapers.
For me, I think it's going to be a case of media, old school media, radio, TV, and newspapers folding into each other, as they've done plenty of times. You've got Southern Cross Austereo is now owned by Channel 7. You have Channel 9 did own radio stations and newspapers. All these things becoming great big conglomerates, allowing the information to be from one company. And eventually the government will say, yeah, fine. We know you're not going to make profit anymore. You can all just be the one company. We don't care anymore. You're gone. They're going to have to move their content for some local things online and trying to promote themselves. Hey, we're online, we're social media. You can get there and give us your feedback. You can drop us news stories and we can get there and send journalists out in your area to cover things. But they're more relying on community engagement, letting the community actually be the ones to provide the news services. So for me, it's going to become online only because you've got your phone in your pocket all the time. Whereas the radio is only there in your car, or it's in the shop, or it's in the house. The phone is constantly there, constantly available to you to do social media, whether it be video, audio, or text.
Now, you see, I would take issue with that comment. The only medium that arrests you and asks you to sit is the television and watch. You can't take the television with you. Whereas with radio, you can be in the toilet, you can be in the bath, you can be walking on the beach, along the footpath, in your car, on your push bike, wherever. Radio is, and I agree with you, in 5-10 years, what we know as radio now is going to diminish, but radio is the only medium that actually can go with you wherever you are, and the person reporting can be anywhere in the world and you can hear them instantly. And for me, let me finish, for me, that's what is going to happen, that there's going to be a greater degree of diversity in the way the message is sent out. And yes, it will only come to one item, namely the thing you have as your phone, either today or in 2028. That may not change. It may evolve into something better, but that will be the avenue, the door through which all of these other diversity of media outlets come to you, and then you choose which one you want to access.
I would normally agree with you with that, with radio being the medium that goes with you easily. These days, however, with Catch-Up TV, 7+, 9 now, ABC iView, unfortunately, they're streaming their shows now live on those services on your phone. So you can be walking around listening to Channel 7 News at that very moment.
You can't be driving and watching.
Well, no, you can put it beside you and have it playing through the speakers.
You can't be driving and watching. It still requires an aspect of your five senses that radio doesn't rely on. Radio relies on only one, the auditory sense, not the eyes, not the taste, not the touch.
If the TV show producers are working properly, they will make sure the content will work just for audio as well as visual.
Well, in exactly the way this podcast is also heard only on Spotify and Apple. Is it on Amazon yet?
It's on Amazon. It's on iHeartRadio.
There you go. So we're everywhere. We're like the future. Oh, my goodness gracious. If this is the future, I give up now.
Well, look, comment below us. Are we the future? Is this show the future of radio?
And please, if you've got a topic you want covered, listen how insightful and intelligent and so switched on is the nerd here. He will answer you. All I will do is nod like Noddy or Big Ears and go back to my newspaper. The Australian tomorrow will be, on a weekend. No, what did it cost me yesterday? It cost me $5.50. So it goes up $1 on the weekend because it's thicker. There are more ads in it. I'm finished now. Bye, Matthew.
See you next week.